Bong, bong. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're all very welcome to the Shout Out Show, the show that we give you a shout if you give us a shout. Hope you're all keeping very well today. It's a magnificent day here in Mullingar. We have a special guest in the bus, ladies and gentlemen, this morning. Just by the skin of her teeth, she just made it. And we are very, very lucky that she has made it. But let's start off our Shout Out Show. Coming to you from Mullingar, in Mullingar. So, a big shout out to Lizzie Farrell, who is, she said yesterday, her daughter, I think, Joanne, is 30 years of age on Monday. So we missed it yesterday, so we're just getting it now. So any messages that you leave today, we'll get them tomorrow. What day is tomorrow? Tomorrow is Friday. So we'll definitely get them because we do this 5 days a week. Okay, Anne Robinson's mother, her name is Rita. And she asked to big shout out to her mother. And her mother's birthday was yesterday and she was in hospital and she sent all the messages and she didn't even say her mother's name. Her mother's name is Rita. So once again, a big shout out to your mother, Anne Robinson in England. Big shout out to you, your mother. And a big shout out to our friends in Australia, and that's Bella, S-O-A-R-E-S, Soros, and she comes in saying hello every day, and she's a great friend of Sean Breen, who actually told her about the show in Australia from Mullingar, and Sean Breen is from Mullingar, and it's all connected up because we're all literally connected to each other at this stage. Happy wedding anniversary to Pierce and Maeve. That's my cousin Maeve. She is 26 years married to Pierce, and they're going out 36 years. Unbelievable. And that comes from, I think, the 5 children, not too sure, but nearly 5, I'm not too sure, but she's my cousin anyway. Big shout out to you. A big shout out to all our friends in Woody's DIY, because it's Hero Day once again for all these fantastic children, and they are doing their best once again. They're a big organisation last year. I don't know what it's going to be like this year, but if you are in Mullingar and you're going to Woody's DIY, you'll be able to do something for the heroes because they're collecting and donating there today. And that's Annie and Jenny Herty, legends from Mullingar, in Mullingar. Okay, another big shout out here to all the birthday girls. We have Blonid Keena, and she's in Ballymore, so a big happy birthday to you. And Samantha Herty, this comes in from your husband Ger, the best man with doing this work. He does a brilliant work with burning names onto wood. He is absolute legend. Check out his page as well. Norman MacDonald is from Aberdeen, and a big happy birthday to you. And Brian Reedy, born, bred and reared in Mullingar, happy birthday to you. Dara McDonough from Mullingar, in Mullingar, a big birthday to you. And Mary Kelly in Balbriggan, a massive birthday to you. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, our special guest is in the house. We didn't get to make her tea, but hopefully we will in a while, and give her some home cooking from here from Mullingar. She's after coming in from Roscommon, and the last time I met her, she was on the canal and she was on the famine walk. I couldn't get over this woman. She talked for Ireland, and her birthday is actually the 24th of December as well, very close to Paddy's Day, or say Christmas Day. She's called a force of nature, and she's the director of Strokestown Park House. She's an actor, she's a director, and she's a force of nature. So let's turn our cameras on her. We have no idea what we're going to talk about, but we have a feeling that we're going to have great crack. So will you please put your hands together for Caroline Callery. So let's turn our cameras around on Caroline Callery. Yes, we have our TV station here working superbly. She's on board. She's suntanned. She must have been out in the sun. Let me get this other camera around here. Houston. Yes, we're sorted. Caroline, thank you for joining us.
How are you? It's a pleasure to be here. I think the last time I saw you, I was in famine costumes and rags, and rather bedraggled as we came into Mullingar on a very rainy day in May 2019. But we had a wonderful reception in the harbour there that evening, and the next morning, I think, was one of the highlights of the commemoration walk last year. We'd over 300 people turned out to see us off.
Wow!
From Piper's Boreen, including the Piper himself. So it was a wonderful event last year in May. So I suppose maybe if I just give a little bit of context.
Yeah, brilliant.
At Strokestown Park House, the National Famine Museum, some of you may or may not know, is the home to the National Famine Museum. That was purchased in 1979 by a local garage man, Jim Callery, from Olive Hales, Packanamanhan. The Packanamanhan family had been there for over 300 years.
The Pakenham family?
Yep, Packanamanhan. So they
Oh,
would
right.
be connected to
Okay.
the Packnams of Tullynally.
Yeah, we were out there last week.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go, Thomas. Yeah, so they would be connected to the Packnams of Tullynally as well. They had reigned in Strokestown from the 1650s right up to 1979.
Wow.
Until the property was purchased by a local garage man whose family had been a former tenant on the estate. His intention really was to get a bit of land. He had recently gotten the Scania dealership for Ireland, and he really just wanted a couple of acres. It was quite a business decision, really, and then to sell the property on. But he did give Olive the right to remain living there for as long as she wanted, which she did for a couple of years until her husband, Major Hales, passed away. And at that point, she was moving to England to be closer to her children, who all lived in England. And one day, she was quite a character too, and one day when she was going to England for the weekend, and they were cataloguing all of the bits and pieces in the house for sale, because that's what you do, you get your biggest bang for buck. Many of of those properties, there was massive auctions, and Mealy's, the auctioneers, had a marquee going out in the garden, and everything was going to be flogged off bit by bit. So Olive was going to, as preparations for this were happening, Olive was heading to England for the weekend and coming back, and Jim said to her, you know, Olive, do you mind if I go in and have a look around while you're away? And she said, of course you can, Mr. Callery, it's your house now. So in he went, and within the first 10 minutes he found himself in a back room, which we now know to be the study and the photography room. And of course the house was in quite decay at this stage, as was most of the Irish aristocracy themselves. But there was ceiling to floor, boxes, and water coming in on the roof. So he was wondering what was in all these boxes. So he opened one of the boxes, and rather serendipitously, the first piece of paper he took out was the famine petition. It's now known famously as the Clooney petition. Jim Callery had been reared in Clooney, as had his father, his grandfather, his great-great-great-grandfather. And in this Clooney petition, which was written on the 26th of August 1846, it said, we are starving. We have we've no food for our families. We can't listen to their cries for food. We went to the border works today. They turned us away. They said they're closing down the border works. We don't want to do anything contrary to the laws of God or the land unless pressed to by hunger, which was in capital letters. And luckily, I suppose, Jim realised instantly the importance of what he'd stumbled upon. So he put the paper back in the box, closed the lid, and when Olive came back, he said to her, look, he said, if you leave the papers, I'll buy the contents of the house. And she agreed to that. So I suppose a number of things happened there. The archive was saved. The contents of the house were saved. It put Strokestown Park into 5% of houses that literally has its original contents, hundreds and hundreds of years of one family gathering, portraits, everything. But more importantly, it saved what has become known as the most important famine archive in existence. The records date from the 1650s right up to 1979. So some 55,000 documents. Some of those documents are anything from 10 to 50 pages. So a pretty massive collection, which we're still only scratching the surface of 40 years on. It was a brave decision by Olive, I think, to leave the archive. Many families, as they left, they did a number of things. They burnt their archives. They donated them to the state. But almost unilaterally, they took out the decade of the famine. Because they would have realised how it would reflect on the families. And this is what makes the Strokestown archive so rare. Like on examination, and Kieran Riley has a wonderful book on the archive. There turned out to be 3,000 similar pleas from tenants over the years of the famine. So let's jump forward a little bit, I guess. The house was opened to the public in 1987. The Famine Museum was opened in 94. The 4-acre pleasure gardens were opened in 98. The 2-acre vegetable gardens were opened in 2000. And one of the far courtyard, the north courtyard, was restored in 2007. and the Woodland Walk was restored in 2010. So it's an ongoing philanthropic project, really, for Jim Callery. So in the archive then, recently I suppose I've begun to do more work. I'm a director of the Westwood Group, and I'm also a director of the Irish Heritage Trust. The Irish Heritage Trust took over operation in Strokestown Park in 2016. So I think, in my mind, I like to think what was originally an Anglo-Irish estate was handed back to a former tenant in 1979, and in 2016 was handed back to the people through the prism of the Irish Heritage Trust.
Your connection here, are you from Roscommon?
I am, yeah.
Are you from down the road, or what's the connection to the house? How did you...
Oh God. I'm from Strokestown. I'm Jim's daughter, Caroline.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's...
So
just
I've
to...
been, I suppose, reared in this.
Yeah, and I mean, we done interviews, you see, before, and I mean, I just walked up to you. I never met you before. There was this band playing in the background. We had a fantastic chat. It just went bang bang. I was stunned. I was thinking, can I get any more out of this? And like, I was just knocked out by... I listened to the interview again this morning, and I thought, I better find out some more. But I ended up watching the movie that's made, the movie of the history of going from 16 up to the famine and a little bit past it. The whole idea then of Irish people leaving to go to Australia, and then the tea, what was it, Earl Grey tea.
Yeah.
I mean, he brought 4,000 women out to Australia.
That was the Orphan Girls scheme.
Yeah.
So Australia, because it had so many convicts, obviously that tended to be mostly male, and they were in dire need of young women or wives for these men. So not Earl Grey tea, but Earl Grey in the British Parliament put together a scheme where 4,000 orphan girls from Ireland, famine orphans, were sent out to Australia effectively to provide wives for the...
That's how we look on the television all morning. Do you know what I mean? And I said, I'll have to do a bit of sort of looking over this. And like, I looked at the relief roads. There was relief roads made for the famine victims to literally walk them out of the place.
Yeah, well, the relief schemes were kind of various landlords put together schemes to create work, so that, you know, rather than giving money out. Now it was pittance pay, and some of the time the conditions were horrific on those works. As the Clooney Heath people said, we went to the public work schemes or whatever. But certain landlords put follies like started building schools, or what they call famine roads, which were roads that actually ended up nowhere.
Yeah.
But a lot of landlords did put together a number of schemes to try and assist. But I mean, it was just overwhelming, and the parallels even with COVID today.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole system was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
The issue was the fever. Cholera and typhus. These are, the body weakened, but it was a fever that took you, and there was this awful fear of the fever.
Yeah.
And that's what killed people, eventually.
Yeah.
As that spread, especially on the famine ships and the close quarters they were in. But you're looking at 8 million population at the time.
Yeah.
How do you socially distance with 8 million when you're starving and when you're all living in a mud hut, 10 people?
Yeah.
Fourth class housing was just, but so. From that point of view, there are strong parallels, and again, the both famine ships, they were meant to be a way, to save people, to go to Canada where there was work on the canals, where there was land, because the railways were going inland and whole tracts of land were freeing up. These, it was a hope. It was the schemes in essence, did give hope.
It was a good idea.
It was a good idea, but the mode of transport became so dangerous. Just like it is today. Like, for example, with COVID, the airports. I mean, every airport must be full of COVID. I don't care what anybody tells me. I've never left the airports. Wherever you're landing the other end of the plane. Yeah. That's just a reality. And again, on the second day of the first walk in 2015, we were in Balnacarrigy, and somebody rang me, and I was told, which made me feel sick to the pit of my stomach, that an emigrant ship had turned over in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Italy, and 600 people had been drowned.
Yeah.
Now, I knew 600 of our people weren't going to survive the transatlantic voyage, and they were going to find a watery grave. And that really, it made me sick. It made me sick because I thought, our past is somebody else's present. That's not good enough. how are ships, how is the mode of transport now still the most dangerous thing you can do when you're fleeing from something? Where's the regulation around this? You know, how are people allowed jam 600 people onto a ship in 2015, causing it to drown 600 people, in 1847, 1848, causing the fever just to go rife because they were crammed together down in the base of the ships.
Yeah.
And again, when we set off from Mullingar last May, part of we had a wonderful send off. Part of the group of that 300 people were emigrants from the reception centres in Athlone.
That's right, I remember them on the right hand side there, yeah.
And I had a most beautiful email from Jerry, who worked with them, because he did the walk with us. A wonderful man, volunteer of course. And he sent me an email, and I'm paraphrasing a bit now afterwards, but he said it was a most amazing experience. He said, sometimes I feel over the years that I'm working in the dark. He said all of the group that attended that day couldn't believe, because they arrived a little bit late, and when they came onto the banks of the canal, the crowd turned round and clapped. And he said they were emotional for about a week afterwards, because they were so used to meeting hostility everywhere they went.
Yeah.
He said it was the first time that a group had actually turned around and welcomed them so openly and so visibly, and that it really brought home to him why he was doing the work he was doing, and the parallels between our people in the past and present. So
just getting back to the house, people can call to the house now, they can have a look. There's a...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So at the moment the house itself is closed, obviously due to COVID, but the Famine Museum, the gardens, the Woodland Walk, and the full estate is open. So we'd be delighted, anyone who has a mind to visit.
Yeah.
And again, we are very much at the centre of the Hidden Heartlands development. Stokestown Park and the Fam Museum received a grant of close to 5 million for an upgrade, which will be happening over the next 12 months.
That's right. 21 is meant to be finished. Is that right?
That's right.
Will it be?
Spot on. I think so. Yeah. No, we're working away behind the scenes.
Right.
There's no,
excellent.
We were able to do all the tender document stuff.
Yeah.
That is, which has been fantastic. So we'll be ready to roll. We're on schedule at the moment. And that was the largest Falter grant ever given outside an urban setting. So I think it will bring a whole new era for Stokestown. So then, in relation to the Famine Walk, which speaks directly to Mullingar, I suppose my connections would be, as you said, my background is in theatre, although I do a little bit of theatre work, but I got hauled in other directions as well.
And great that you can, go in these other directions, you know what I mean? Because some people just go into theatre and that's it. When you have a lot going on, it does vary your life.
It does, and
keeps you lively.
Going into theatre might make the bank less healthy if you went down there. You have to do the other stuff to keep the bread and butter and rear the kids and all the rest. But and I would be educationally, I have a crash in Tarm and Barry as well, Nurture's Best. So I would always have a very creative and educational approach. So I would be, I suppose, what we're developing in Stokestown now is what I would call making history visible. So taking the history now out from behind the walls of the museum and literally walking it through local, national, international cyberspaces.
Wow.
We have a number of programs. We have a Great Famine Voices program. We have the Irish Famine Summer School. We have a new educational program. So these are all kind of in that realm. But probably the largest of them is the National Famine Way. And that literally takes the story and walks it from Stokestown 165 kilometres to the Custom House Quay and the famine statues in Dublin. That all came about in 2013, in around 2013, the Thai family. So the Thai family were a family my dad had become aware of in the year 2000, and he had met the descendants in Canada and recorded with them. So Mary Thai was from Lissanuffy outside Stokestown, and when Dennis Mahan offered the emigration scheme, she availed of it. Her husband Bernard had already died in Lissanuffy, so she convinced her brother William Kelly to go along with her and her 5 children in a desperate attempt to save her family. They board the Naomi in Liverpool. She succeeds in saving her family, but she pays with the price of her life, her brother's life, and the lives of 3 of her children. So Daniel, who's 12, and little Catherine, who's 9, are the only 2 members of that family that get off the ship in Grosse Ile in Canada.
That's the island that they all went to, isn't that right? Yeah, it was sort of like Quarantine Island.
Yeah. Every ship had to stop there.
There was what? There was 30 ships with 12,000 people trying to get into it at one stage.
A line down the whole of the St. Lawrence.
Yeah.
And there's a grave there with over 5,000 Irish buried there in 1847 alone. And of course many more died when they went on up the river in the fever houses and sheds in Toronto and Montreal. But little Daniel and Catherine find themselves in the orphanage in Quebec, and they're taken out by the parish priest. The parish priest used to bring them out and get families in the outlying villages. And they're passing through a village called Lotbinière, and in Lotbinière this elderly couple, the Colombs, come up to the cart and say, look, they have a farm, 168-acre farm, and they have no children. So they're looking for a little boy to help them on the farm. And they see Daniel and they think at 12, and he's been in the orphanage, so he's probably, quite strong. And they say, we'll take him, so that he gets down off the cart. And at that stage, little Catherine jumps and, sorry, it gets me every time. She jumps off the cart and she runs after him, clinging to his leg, screaming, because he's the last person left in the world that she knows. And the Colombs turn round and they quite famously say, "On va prendre les deux," we will take them both.
Wow.
And they do. So Daniel and Catherine find themselves on 168 acres, less than 12 weeks after they've left a quarter acre in Lissanuffi. But I guess miles away from everything they'd ever known or loved as well.
These stories, how do you pick up these stories? Are these written down?
So this family, really interestingly, my father, because we were connected to Grosse Ile, we were twinned with the quarantine station in Grosse Ile, spent some time coming over and back to Canada in the late 90s. And a wonderful, wonderful historian there who has since passed, Marianne O'Gallagher, made him aware. She said, I have a guy, he's called Leo Ty, he's in his early 90s, but his people came from Strokestown, and they've passed the story down in the family over the generations, and they've kept it close.
Wow.
So we have this amazing video with Marianne and so a couple of Irish people and Leo and his wife, and they're literally there's English and French and translations and everything, but it's an amazing piece.
Yeah.
So and then in 2012 I was working on a theatre project with teenagers who were from the age of 12 to 15. Lovely, rich 3-year project, and that was based really about making awareness of the Canada connection in the community in Strokestown. And they hear the story of the ties, so they say at some stage in 2012, why as a gathering event in Strokestown do we not invite Daniel's great-great-grandson Richard Ty back home?
Wow.
So we did that, and Richard, who didn't even have a passport, who wasn't particularly well, who didn't speak English, came back to Strokestown for the first time in 166 years that family had set foot there, to a wonderful 10-day gathering event. Everything, the GAA, the knitting group, the Active Age, Strokestown, I mean there was just events on everywhere. And it was quite amazing because people just came up to them in the street and just touched them. It was like they just wanted to touch them.
Yeah.
We're sorry,
Yeah, connect.
And of course, they didn't speak any English, so
Yeah.
that was an amazing event and really has been the start. I mean, I would say the Famine Way and a lot of what's happening now has been as a result of that gathering event in Strokestown. So on the National Famine Way, little Daniel features quite strongly.
Oh, this is on the shoes.
On the bronze shoes.
Yeah.
So in I suppose after we had invited the Ties home, Kieran Riley, who wrote that fabulous book on Strokestown, decided was looking through the archive, and he came across the ship lists. So we'd always thought around 1,000 people went, but he comes across the ship lists, which are documents that have the town land, then the head of household. So it would have said whatever, Umlin, Peter Egan, 10. So that's probably his wife and 8 children or whatever. That's the group number. But we get all of these, so we've never had that before, and there are 1,490 on the ship list that we have. And then we began to wonder about their journey. How did they, what was we know about the famine ship bit, but what was the journey like here on the ground in Ireland? Like it's a long way to Dublin, and we learned that they actually walked from Strokestown to Clondra, which is about 20 kilometres, and then the full length of the Royal Canal, and that Bailiff Robinson is with them, and that John Ross Mahan, the agent, meets them in Dublin, And at the same time, Strokestown was the official commemoration of the famine in 2014. So for that, we put up a glass wall that mirrors the glass wall in Groseal with the names, heads of households of it. So, and then in 2015, 5 of us just did the walk, just as a commemoration piece.
Yeah.
We were walking through a lot of bog because a lot of the pathways on the canal hadn't been done at that stage, and we were just a group of 5, and we were just, all of a sudden there was local press, national press, international press, and we were quite overwhelmed with the attention that it seemed to get. So very quickly after the 2015 walk, a conversation started around having a trail, having a national famine way, kind of Ireland's only famine heritage trail, in the lines of the Trail of Tears, the Choctaw Trail of Tears in America, or like the Camino, and quickly got nicknamed the Famino at a stage, but as a pilgrim walk in memory of all Irish people who had to emigrate at that time. So Waterways knew that the pathways weren't going to be finished till 2019. We knew that we'd have to talk to all the councils. We knew there was going to be a lot of partners, and we partner with all 7 councils, Waterways, the Royal Canal Amenity Group, a fantastic group of people, the IAWI or the IWAI, Irish Waterways Inland Association. Also with the ADAPT programme at Trinity, who have done some filming and some work on the website with us, and Professor Christine Keneally of Quinnipiac University in Connecticut in the US, and Professor Mark McGowan at the University of Toronto, who's done fantastic work at picking up the baton and working out on that side who survived. What are the names? What can we get from the records there? And we're really beginning to piece back families now, which is really lovely and beautiful, because it's the renaming that's so important to me. It's the honour of working on this project is being able to give back names to people who had been wiped out, really, by history,
buried on the road, or left on the road,
absolutely,
you know.
So that part of it is a real honour. So with Waterways, we sat down and we said, okay, well, we'll do another commemoration walk in 2017 as we build the partnerships, which we did. And I have to say, every door I knocked on just flew open in every area with all our partners. And then with the aim of doing it again in 2019. That'll be 3 times I've walked to Dublin in my lifetime. Something I thought I would never do. Was not on my wish list, but anyway.
Absolutely,
an amazing experience.
So are you doing it again?
So in 2019 then the aim was, because the pathways are finished, that we would be launching a National Famine Way.
Okay.
So in 2019, last May, the pathways were finished. And all the signage was up, and Sports Ireland inspected it, and it is now an official accredited trail for anybody to do at any time.
And can you go to them, the shoes, and are they up and working?
So up and working. They're not walking away, but so
get the app and get the information.
So the lovely layer, and really we would also call it it's a trail that has a deep connection to arts and creativity. So we would say it's a sculpture trail with other artistic elements. So it starts at the glass wall at Strokestown, and then there are 32 pairs of bronze shoes interspersed the whole way along, with the last pair of bronze shoes at the famine statues, Rowan Gillespie's famine statues. That's the trailhead on the quay.
Wow.
And again, we intend to build out that. But the little bronze shoes themselves are, they speak to a number of things. And we're currently finishing, and I'll show you in a minute, the final bits really for a launch in a few weeks. So the bronze shoes, we did a lot of detailed historical research. We used the 1837 Ordnance Survey to show us what buildings were along the way. And of course the ruins of those are mostly still there, only you just don't see them a lot of the time till they're pointed out to you. So we began to recreate each of those spaces as they were. In May 1847, we were very specific, so that we could reimagine those spaces through the voice of 12-year-old Daniel Tighe. So, for example, we know that Mullingar, once they reached Mullingar, there was a lot of work going on the railways, right? So they would have seen a number of things. Loads of people coming from the west, desperately looking for work. So massive encampments along the banks with like mud huts. And in one report we read that on some occasions the mud huts just fell in around families, and that was their graves. down at Mosstown Harbour. We have the Longford Archivist lets us know about a letter from Mosstown House that says, look at the dogs, the starving dogs are breaking into the kitchen. You know what I mean? So then you begin to think about animals during the famine. What happens to animals, you know? And again, we worked with Seamus O'Brien, wonderful local historian, Ruth Illingworth, I'm sure everybody knows, another fantastic historian, and with your heritage officer and obviously with Fiona in tourism at the minute. So we pieced together what the space might have been like. And with that, we do a number of things, and this is all on the website and is currently being put into an app. We start with, again, another fantastic friend to the project, Marita Conlon McKenna, who wrote Under the Hawthorn Tree, which most people would have read in school, a very beloved Irish author. Marita, with all the historical information, creates little vignettes of what Daniel might have seen as he was walking through these spaces. So in Mosstown, he's hanging on to his mother because there's dogs, ravishing dogs, barking at them, or, you know, and again, the sound of the railway and the clanging and the building of the railway in Mullingar. That beautiful, beautiful story of the piper at Piper's Boring coming out to pipe the emigrants as they passed a final farewell. So these are beautiful, deep, rich local stories as we go in all the different areas. So if you go into the app or you go into the website, you can click, the shoes are all listed by county.
Yeah.
And if you click into a particular pair, say you find yourself, and it tells you where you are, this is Strokestown, Roscommon, Strokestown 1 shoes, or Mullingar, Piper Boring shoes, and you can click on that, and the first thing you're going to get is just that little vignette of Daniel telling his story. So literally a digital storybook over the whole 32 pairs of shoes. And then the second thing you'll get is local history. So that gives you a really nice piece of local history. And a lot of the local histories have videos of people like Professor Mark McGowan, Christine Keneally, like international recognised academics who did the walk with us at different locations. So for example, Christine is speaking at the Famine Graveyard, a very, very evocative site here in Mullingar. And then you get the local amenities. And we also have an artistic layer, so we will name if there's something. So for example, Ulysses, the Greville Arms, being mentioned in Ulysses, and obviously Swift and Lilliput get a little mention as well. So lovely, rich resource. And that's all gone to audio as well. So we have a little 12-year-old boy in Strokestown who is reading the Daniels piece so that you can listen to it as you walk. And that's all being dropped into an app at the minute, so not available just yet, but we will definitely let you know the minute it is.
Brilliant.
So, and then the other layers of it are, at the minute that's being finished, is the passport. So if anybody can do any part of the walk at any time, but if you want to become an official walker, and you can register to become an official walker on the National Famine Way website or the Strokestown Park website, and that will get you a little, it's a little passport style. This isn't our one, but it's about to be. Ours is fully designed and gone for print as we speak. So this will be your passport and your guide, and also you stamp each county, one stamp per county as you go through it. And when you arrive in Epic, you can go into Epic, the Irish Emigration Museum, and the Jeannie Johnson, and they will give you your certificate of completion. An official walker also gets a ship ticket, and the ship ticket will, I'll put my hand on it in there now, but the ship ticket will, you will walk in the footsteps of a particular family. So we have information on about 20 families. So if you're in a group, then each person gets a different family to walk in the footsteps of, and we have the names of the dates the ships went, the price they paid, the captain of the ship. We have all of that information, and then the names of the family members that were in that family. We don't always have complete families. We may have half of them, because when they died at sea, you didn't usually get the name. It was only if they died on Gross Eel or joined the orphan list. And with that ticket, you will walk in the footsteps of a particular family. And when you arrive at Epic as well, in Epic, the Irish Family History Centre have a depot, and you can go there and at the end find out what happened to your family and how many of them survived and what we know about what happened to them next.
It's very interesting, isn't it?
It's a very rich, deep experience.
The type of people who are going to come on this are people who are going to come from Canada, America,
Yeah,
Do you reckon, and a lot of local people will want to do this trip?
yeah, absolutely. And I think international walking groups,
Yeah.
will like, I suppose, a lot of people are saying that the Famine Way will stand out as a trail because of the depth of meaning and the depth of resources that are around it.
And as well as that, it'll travel as a story as well.
Yeah.
Because I was on the Camino, I went in the Camino and I stopped the Camino. And then I went in the famine. Oh,
Yeah.
the Irish famine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? And then they start talking. And we're
The
back
little
to...
bronze shoes instead of the shell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're back to the whole thing of people communicating with each other and telling each other the story. And that's how everything is done, really.
And I think absolutely we would like to think that over 5 to 10 years that this will really build into one of Ireland's major trails. I know I heard statistics on the Camino now recently, but it was maybe something like in 1989 800 people did the Camino, and in 2016 it was something like 800,000, or
Right, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the figures
yeah.
were phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't
And as things go by, I think our culture is going to change. We're going to get very, I'd say, orientated towards walking and leisure.
And
leisure.
COVID has pushed even stronger. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been walking the canal since 2015, when I was like the only person on it.
Yeah.
In 2017, there was
Now they're on your canal.
sprinkling more of it. There was a lot on it in 2019 because the cycleway, the greenway is opening from Maynooth down, and there's fantastic work done on the paths.
Yeah.
But during COVID, I mean, the canal is mobbed. It's fantastic to see because it's a wonderful resource.
And as I said, the culture as well, and the history, and even you walking the canal and telling the stories, and people then thinking, oh, what? I know, really. And then it ignites them to actually go back and check it out or go on. Now, if we went on what is the page that we go to see all this information?
It's the National Famine Way.
Okay, the National Famine Way.
.ie is the website, and that has effectively everything that's being dropped into the app is available there. But once the app is available, I suppose it makes it a little bit easier. So the passport, the app, and digitised maps are all in final stages. So I was here today meeting with one of your directors of services, Barry, and with Fiona in the tourism office.
Wow.
I also paid a visit into Millie Walsh because obviously there's a fantastic committee there on with the Famine Graveyard, which is evocative. Mullingar is very central to the National Famine Way for a number of reasons. First of all, it's at the halfway point. Which makes it that kind of a location where people are likely to stay over a night, and we have a fantastic private provider, Famine Way Tours. So that's again, I think it's famineWayTours.ie. So he has been working along with all of the different counties, and he's put together a package. So if you want to do it all in one stretch, he can provide accommodation and moving the bags from A to B and all the kind of stuff that we don't want to be at.
Yeah.
And register as an official walker and do all of that in one batch for people. So in that, it's a 2-week walk because the Camino, they kind of do 15 kilometres a day, and you spill out into into the villages, to get a sense of what you're walking through into the towns. But Mullingar again is it's just there's such a wealth of I suppose monuments, really. You've got the workhouse, so when you come to Mullingar, the canal goes straight. So what I was looking at with Barry and Fiona today is that there will be a loop, what we call the workhouse and famine graveyard loop, and that loop will start down at the bronze shoes that are down by Paradise Gate on the harbour there, and it will take you out across the bridge, down by the hospital, over to the workhouse. And again, we're looking at kind of taking away the bit of ugly fencing there at the minute, and kind of doing the door, because I mean that's an amazingly original.
We done a video. I'll show you the video. We done a video with Ruth on it.
Yeah.
Back in the start of the year.
Yeah.
And and there's a great feeling to it as well. There's an energy in there.
It's an original door. It's and it's you look at that and when families walked through that.
Yeah.
Mothers were sent this way, fathers were sent that way, boys were sent that way, girls were sent that way, and families didn't, the chances of them coming back together again was practically zilch. And the Mullingar workhouse was located near a quarry, purposely located near a quarry, because you worked in the workhouse. It was a workhouse.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the men did 12-hour, back-breaking days in the quarry nearby. And we also know from the history, and Ruth probably told you this, that the young boys were making coffins. Was one of the things they were doing, was one of their work pieces. then you go from the workhouse. Again, it'd be just lovely to see that, because it is an original door, and it's really in very good condition. So just to be able to stand and look at that and see the whole workhouse structure, and then down to the Robinstown graveyard. I mean, that's just it's just a beautiful, one of the most evocative graveyards, famine graveyards in the country. The gate and the little cross, and then you just come back down the spur line. And you come
back on, supply line,
So you do hit kind of road for a little bit out round by the hospital, but once you go down onto the supply line, you just come back out on the supply line. You stay along the North Bank, and then at the Dublin Road, you cross over, and you're back onto the South Bank and onto the main train.
You must know every inch of it.
Yeah, since 2015, I
And all the spots, like, you know where Paradise is, and you know what I mean?
But last year we just did such fantastic work, speaking with the local archivists and speaking with, with the local historians in each area, and say Seamus and Ruth here, but each county has those, and it was just a pleasure.
And passionate about the whole thing,
So like, even let's say the information on the bronze shoes there on the website at the minute. I have the second draft of that, which has probably double the information that's on that. Just from what I was at the last few weeks, was kind of pulling together, going back and double checking that we had put in everything that was of interest. And it's just, and every locality has these beautiful little stories, like the Piper's Boreen, or, it's just, it's
well,
it's
look, my
wonderful.
dear, I think we'll wrap it up. I mean, we could chat, and you could chat all day. And once again, look, thanks a million for joining us on our shout out show, we call it. And we're on the bus, so we're going live, folks, for the last few days with our extra shows. As I said, you can see this is our bus, and this is where we go live every day. This is the beautiful lady Caroline who joined us today, and we're over the moon. As I said, we could just stay here all day and listen, but look, just have a listen to all that information that we've given you. Check out the video, and we'll leave loads of information up above here of other videos, other contacts, and if you want to just go on this walk, it's ready to go, it's ready to walk.
Yeah, it's ready to roll.
Once again, Caroline, thank you very much for joining us here from Mullingar in Mullingar. This is Ray Dolan, promoting what's good and great about our town, our people, and our business, and the country as well. Thank you, Caroline.